I was just curious, like, what would be your advice for just the average person that, doesn't really know much about financial markets or investing and stuff like that? What should they do with?
I think they should ignore the markets. So yeah, I have the very like I think that Peter Thiel's like famous advice of what's the one what does he say? What's the one thing that you have high conviction in that nobody else believes is true? Um, or something close to that, that you can do the inverse or converse. What's the one thing you think is true that nobody else does, and you have high conviction that you're right? And I think that stock markets don't go up over the long run, and that's like a very, very counterintuitive and strange concept. So I'm talking about net of inflation, net of capital gains tax, and net of country sort of survivorship bias. So once you strip away all of those things, I don't think equities go up over the long run. In fact, I could argue that they go down. America obviously has been the exception. The stock market's returned 7% for a very long time. However, that is not an a priori kind of outlook. That is a retrospective post hoc piece of information that has zero, and I mean literally zero impact on future returns. So that has happened. It doesn't mean it will continue to happen. And, the whole post hoc ergo propter hoc kind of philosophy that people take with investing, like, oh, well, it's, if the market goes down, I'll just buy more. That didn't work in Germany. That didn't work in Japan. That didn't work in Russia. That didn't work in Argentina. It didn't work in Brazil, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And you have to assume that our country is going to be exceptional forever. And, look around. Does America feel exceptional right now? It doesn't. It is in some ways. And I hope it continues to be, of course. But, I think that there is a little bit of sort of risk, putting all your eggs in the S&P 500 and praying that our country's management team, who we elect, is getting it right. And very few people think they're getting it right at the moment. So, thankfully, our country's kind of bulletproof a little bit towards the stupidity of our management team. We do get to vote in a new management team every 4 years, which is a good start. And we have all the other checks and balances that keep things from going too left. So just as a company has a board of directors, we have Congress, which also sort of is a thing that needs to be replaced every now and then and hasn't done so well. And then finally, we have a court system, which is arguably our strongest sort of piece of our system, if you ask me, at least lately. So, it'll be interesting to see if America continues to provide the 7% returns. But even the 7%, again, net of inflation, you're working with less. Net of taxes, which are fairly high for capital gains, you're working with less. And now you're talking about really a small pittance of return. So is it worth chasing that pittance and breaking your brain over, making a couple percent in the stock market? I don't think so. I think you'll get much better peace of mind if you're a programmer. Be the best programmer you can be. Programmers can make 10, 20, $50 million a year if they're really talented. If you're a great lawyer, be the best lawyer you can be. Lawyers can make that much money too, so like focus on what you're good at, what your craft is, and try to find a way to win there. I think that's what you should do if you want to become rich. Like I know a lot of lawyers who are really rich. I know dentists who are rich, doctors, people who are programmers who make 100. There's the amount of people that make $100 million who work at Google or Apple that you never hear about. There are enormous numbers of people like that. It's obviously not millions and millions of people, but there are, I would say hundreds of Microsoft millionaires or tens of millions. Look at a guy like Nathan Myhrvold, who was an early employee at Microsoft. He's a multi-billionaire. You probably never heard of him. I think you'll see that, it's okay to be the number 2 or number 3 or number 30 or number 300 at a company. And I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings people have, that you got to be the head honcho and that's the only way to get rich. And that's complete nonsense. So, being number 10 at Jack Dorsey's company, being number 73 at Facebook, there's, I think Steve Ballmer was the 100 or the 84th employee at Microsoft, something like that. So, he obviously got Bill Gates' attention. So there's nothing wrong with, just finding a great company and working there and being the best sort of engineer, developer, lawyer, whatever the case may be. There's a guy on pharma, Ken Frazier, who was an attorney, and he's not a pharma guy, if you ask me. We have had a little beef over the years, but I respect Ken because he grew to become the CEO of Merck. He was the first African American CEO of a big pharma company, one of the first big S&P 500, kind of S&P 20 black CEOs as well. So I have an enormous amount of respect for what he's achieved. We have a difference of opinion on our relative contribution to the pharmaceutical industry, but in any event, the point is, as an attorney, he did an amazing job, sort of parlaying his legal work into management work and being a tremendous pharmaceutical executive. So hats off to Ken. So anyway, Ken made a fortune, right? So the point is, don't worry about the stock market. The stock market's not good for you. The stock market is a big fight between professional investors like people at Citadel, Millennium, Balyasny, Point 72, Renaissance, and so forth. The Renaissance guys have computers that will outtrade you. The people at Citadel have teams of 50 to 100 super smart guys who are picking over every piece of information who will outtrade you. You are not going to win. You may get lucky and start thinking that you're going to win, but you're wrong. And ultimately, there are people who cheat at the stock market, and they'll outtrade you. Some of those people will get caught, some of them won't, but they're still out. They're still out there, and they're hard to beat. So I think this idea, this fallacy that you can spend 5 or 10 hours a week and beat all the pros in investing, it's nuts. It's the equivalent of if you can go outside of Madison Square Garden, sign up to play the New York Knicks, but you have to put in all of the money from your 401k, and you get to play the New York Knicks today at Madison Square Garden, you and your spouse and a couple of your kids, and the winner takes the money. You wouldn't do that. You would say, that's crazy, Martin. Or I could say, okay, you know what? In Vegas tonight at the Mirage, you're going to fight Brock Lesnar in a match for MMA. And, you wouldn't sign up for that. So why would you do that in the stock market trading against Steve Cohen? Why would you do that in the stock market trading against Ken Griffin? If you believe this fallacy that stocks go up over the long run, sure, there's plenty for everybody to win. But again, ask yourself, why do you believe in that fallacy? Is it because it happened before, therefore it'll happen again? Well, that's like saying, well, it rained yesterday, therefore it's going to rain today and every other day in the future. That doesn't make sense. There's no kind of first principles, as is now a common term, but I called it governing dynamics. There's no governing dynamics that say the market has to go up forever. That's not a machine that anybody's built. It's happened to have happened. It won't happen necessarily in the future. It may or may not. It may happen for 20 more years and then stop. It may happen for 50 more years and then reverse precipitously. It may be reversing precipitously as we speak. It certainly feels like that. So nobody knows. And I think, the idea that one of us is going to figure it out. Now, if you love investing and you love trading, great. Maybe it's a career for you. Maybe you should pursue it. But, I would just say, if you're going to do it, be professional. Nobody's like a part-time brain surgeon. Nobody's a part-time, professional basketball player. You either go all in or don't do it at all. That's sort of my 2 cents.